everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Deconstructing the Narrative. I'm your host, and I'm also a content creator with SADA Collective. My name is Erica, and today I'm here with Grayson. How are you, Grayson?
Hello, Erica. I'm doing quite well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Great. So today we're just going to get started. If you could just give us a background on, I guess, what your role is in the creative community right now and what you are working on at the moment.
Well, I'm Grayson, as mentioned, and I produce mostly. So I guess I make music with a computer for the most part. I've been producing for like 6 years now, I think, since I was 18. So if I did my math correctly, that's about 6 years. But right now I'm just producing as much music as I can, both for me and then for my friends around me, you know, people that are talented vocalists and things like that. So I'm also been working on a bunch of like visual creating. I've been kind of into light shows at EDM
awesome.
raves, things like that, or 3D renderings, like the visuals and stuff. So mostly just making music and making visuals as much as I can, really.
Definitely. Super cool. And can you dive a little bit deeper, I guess, for us into your background and kind of what led you to choosing this creative route of music and kind of like visual, the visual aspects, I guess, of the music community as well?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I was young, actually, all the way up until I was 18, I didn't actually listen to any music, which is kind of weird. People are always
That's
taken
crazy.
it's weird because when I was growing up, my dad listened to like African tribal rhythm style music, which I can appreciate now. But as a kid, you know, it's like a second grade, third grade kid. You're not listening to that stuff. And my sisters listened to show tunes. They were big on like Broadway musicals and things like that. And then my friends listened to hard rock, hard rap, things like that. So initially, as a kid, I thought I didn't like music. I just thought it was something that, you know, it's in the car when people aren't talking, or it's in a supermarket to give you kind of ambiance. But it wasn't until I turned, I think it was either 16 or 17, that I heard a song from Chance the Rapper called Cocoa Butter Kisses. And I remember exactly what it was when I heard it. And I was sitting on my friend's couch. We were upstairs in his room. And something about that song just hit me. And I was like, wait, this is kind of cool. So that whole summer, I only listened to that album. My friends made fun of me because that's the only thing I listened to. But I didn't find any music I liked before that. And then once I found some music that I did like, I started to kind of dive deeper into it. And then I moved to Germany. And once I moved to Germany, I heard EDM for the first time. And then it was like over from there, because once I heard that kind of music, and I thought to myself, how does somebody make that? It's not, you don't learn the guitar to make that kind of music. What is it? And I did a little bit of research, found out about Ableton. And then ever since then, I've just been obsessed with music. I think it's me trying to compensate for my lack of music for the first 18 years of my life. And I'm only 6 years of listening to music, as opposed to the 18 that I didn't. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to find my own voice, my own style through music. And I think it's interesting because I didn't have any like childhood influences or anything like that. So it's just a clean slate. So ever since then, it's just been one thing after another, kind of leading me deeper and deeper into this musical journey, I suppose. So yeah.
That's awesome. And can you dive a little bit deeper into your past, like with Germany, being in Germany and stuff? Because I know that EDM is like a huge thing there. That's where it originates from. I know that, you know, a lot of like EDM and stuff kind of has come from Germany and over in Europe. So can you kind of, I guess, talk a little bit about your experiences there with the music and kind of, I guess, how the cultures surrounding that, like, you know, music, I guess, you know, area is so different from like here. Can you kind of touch on that and what that looks like in comparison to like the US?
Yeah, I mean, culture in general was vastly different over there. It's kind of crazy, the things that were different, the things that you wouldn't really think of before you go there. This has nothing to do with music, but one of my favorite examples is, you know, after let's say you're in America, right? And after a speech at a dinner party, somebody will clap, right? In Germany, everybody just knocks on the table instead. So it's like a weird difference that I wouldn't notice. But apart from that being completely irrelevant, the music side of things, I think it was really the friend group that I found when I was over there. I actually moved there to play ice hockey. I've been playing ice hockey my whole life. And so that was the reason, the legitimate reason I went over there was to play ice hockey. But my friends listened to this EDM style music, like house, tropical house type stuff, even some big room house. And having lived over there and having been 18 years old, I got to go to the clubs and I got to drink in those clubs and things like that. So I got to experience that scene for the first time. And not only was it me experiencing the scene for the first time, but it was me experiencing music in general for the first time. So it was so beautifully overwhelming that I immediately became obsessed. And once I figured out that there were ways to make music, as I mentioned before, I got into it over there. So once I started to learn more about it, I started to learn that there were ways to make music that weren't the traditional sense of making music, or at least the way that people see making music to be. You know what I mean? People often see it as, oh, you need to know your major from your minor chords, and I guess that is relatively important. But there are other ways to do it now. You know, sampling is a big thing, and kind of recycling music ideas and putting your own spin on them and making them into something original is a very viable way of doing things these days. So in Germany, I kind of started to discover that I didn't need to be a virtuoso as a kid in order to make this kind of music. So it just made me fall deeper and deeper in love with the craft, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I do like that you kind of touched on the fact that, like, you know, you don't have to like go such the traditional route. Cause like, I think you grew up thinking like, you know, there's always these like protege, like kids who like grew up and they like been making music or learning music since they were like children. And usually it's like coming through the family, like one of the parents was into it and they, you know, tossed it down to the kids. So I think that's really cool that, you know, that there is this outlet for musicians to kind of learn. And especially with everything else being so digital these days, I feel like why wouldn't that be something that would also be easy to pick up on, you know, digitally, you know what I mean? So that is really cool that you kind of touched on that. And I love that your story is so interesting because like I said, again, you know, most times you hear, you know, kids who've been doing music, they've been listening to and doing music their whole life. So the fact that you have such a, you know, like you just like picked it up so quick and you kind of just ran with it. Yeah, which is so awesome. That's so cool to hear. And it's a very different narrative from like any other, like, I guess, musician you'd probably talk with. So that's really cool. And then kind of moving on, you know, for the series, we're really kind of touching on, you know, artist stories or creative stories and what I guess they feel that their creative outlet means to them. So can you just dive a little bit deeper into, I guess, I'm not sure if you have one specific theme that kind of runs throughout all of your music, or if you just have like, you know, some sort of narrative that you kind of want people to kind of gather from your music when they're listening to it. What is, I guess, the story behind all of this?
Well, I think the purpose of when I sit down to make music is obviously I want it to be an honest expression, but that's not unique. Everybody wants that when you sit down to make music. But I think what more than anything, if I end up being somewhere big with my music, if I end up having like my own idea of success with music, I think what I want people to gather from me is that music isn't untouchable, and the ability to express yourself isn't untouchable, especially in today's age of technology. As I mentioned before, right? It's not just traditional ways of learning music and expressing yourself through that. There are other ways to do things. And so I think if I want people to look at me and see that, hey, I can do that too, or I have that ability too, because to me, music has always been inherently human and nothing other than that. You know what I mean? If you're human, you have the ability to create music and to express yourself. So in terms of the idea behind my music and the idea behind me making the music, that's what I want people to see. But when I go in to make the music, what I'm looking to feel out of that most of the time is a breath of fresh air. In Germany, back to Germany again, my friends would always say that I make Schlafmusik, which means sleep music, because I didn't make heavy EDM, so they immediately called it sleep music. But to me, the music is supposed to soothe me, and if I can fall asleep to the music, then that just means it's a good song. It doesn't mean that it's literally putting you to sleep. So I want people to feel calm yet energized with my music, depending on the song. Obviously, some things I do want to fall asleep to, but other things I want to be more energetic. But I always want it to be soothing to an extent. And then in terms of the idea behind the music, I want people to see the beauty of the music as being something inherently human and something that you can experience, you can create, because I was able to create it even after not having music influences for 18 years of my life. So I just want people to see what I do and to understand that it's not out of reach for them. And as long as they find an avenue to express themselves, then I'm happy.
Yeah, I think that just ties all into like everything that you've kind of come through, you know, again, like we were talking about, you know, this aspect of you just like not going from like zero to like all the way to like making music, you know, like that's really awesome. And I think that your like narrative that you want to portray through that of like kind of, you know, being able to just do whatever you want to do within that industry, really is really shining through because of the fact of your story. And I feel like, you know, that's a really great narrative for kids to know too, that it's not untouchable, you know, because I feel like especially with something like that, like it's very daunting, you know what I mean? Like I said, you know, you grow up hearing of these kids who grow up making music their whole life or knowing music their whole life. So like as someone to come in like older, you know what I mean, and like with an interest in that, it's very daunting to like want to like sit down and like learn it when you feel like you need like to go to school for it or you need to have someone, you know, lessons or something like that. So I think that's really cool.
People think it's expensive too.
Exactly. Yeah. So the fact
there's like a gate that they can't pass through, but yeah, I want to disable that or dismantle that narrative. So yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that it's something that's like reachable and touchable is really cool, and you know, just you kind of portraying that through your craft is really awesome as well. And so moving on, I kind of want to talk to you about, I guess, what is like the role that you feel, and this is more general, I guess, doesn't really have to do with the music industry, but just in general, what would you say the role is of an artist like in today's society? Because like obviously we have so many things going on with social movements and political movements and just everything obviously else that's going on in the world right now. So what would you say the artist's role is at this moment in time, like within our society?
You know, I think at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I think part of it is mostly because I like this phrase, a breath of fresh air, or a way of organizing reality into something beautiful when things can seem so hectic. And I really don't want to sound too cliche with, oh, the world's going crazy.
No, it's so true though.
Artists are sanctuary, but it is kind of true. It's taking something that is so seemingly chaotic and applying creativity and intelligence to make something just aesthetically pleasing, just something that highlights the experience of life. Because there are so many people out there that are trying to control other people. And although it could be argued that artists in a way control people, I would like to think that artists are controlling people in a way that's that lets those people dictate their own experience. You know what I mean? I've always said that when you make a song, or especially when you're writing a song with lyrics, you want to leave room for the people that are listening to your song to kind of put themselves into your song. You know what I mean? To share that experience with you, because you're taking something abstract and you're making it tangible. I'm taking experience that I've had and I'm trying to share that with you, but instead of just sharing that through words, trying to tell you the way I feel, instead there's this thing called music that I can just make you feel that way instead of me having to tell you how to feel. So that feeling could be different. You know what I mean? It could be something that you find out of that music that I didn't necessarily intend, or any other artist. So I think the artist's role in today's society is, in short, a breath of fresh air for people who maybe have a lot going on, or maybe feel like there's feels overwhelmed with life in general, and it's just kind of a chance to let go, to be in the moment. Some people do that with sports, some people do that with painting. I think any of those are any expression of yourself, and any experience where all it is just a feeling instead of a conscious thought. That's the role of the artist, to elicit things like that.
To just like find solace and like creativity, basically, you know, finding comfort in those things. Definitely. Yeah, awesome. And then moving on, I guess, what are some, I guess, like really huge inspirations for you? And is there a huge like dream that you have for like your career? Like what is something that like by the time you're done with your career that you would just like love to have accomplished at this point in time?
I really, really want to DJ a rave, like so bad. Ever since I went to my first rave, I guess would be called a rave, was 2 summers ago. My timing is weird because of this whole Corona thing, but I went to Hard Summer a couple of years ago, and people say that's one of the like the lesser raves, one of the not so. And I went there for the first time. My mind was blown. So
That's awesome.
so like just the fact that it's a lower key one is like, it makes me excited. I also got to go to Audiotistic, basically the cheap countdown. And then I have tickets for EDC, which has been canceled twice in a row. So I imagine buying tickets for something that's 2 years in the future. But but some of the biggest inspirations for me are people that make that kind of music and can kind of share that power. You know what I mean? There's so much power in that kind of music, and I really like that. But the middle parts, like the breakdowns of EDM, are very euphoric and beautiful. So Flume is a huge inspiration for me.
Favorite. Yeah.
Just because the EDM that he makes is so him. You know what I mean? It's
so unique. There's nothing like it. Yeah.
It's hard to say, Flume, you're this genre, because Flume is just Flume. And I kind of want to get to that point. Obviously, he's got bits and pieces from different styles, different genres, but it's still his own sound. And I really, really want that. Also, the ability to play live in front of people gives me the creativity, or gives me the opportunity for creativity that's outside of just making a song in itself. So I've always played around with the idea of more interactive visuals, or kind of skits built into the rave set, like vocals coming over and it's like a skit somehow. So I have a lot of weird ideas that are only really possible if I have the opportunity to be in front of that many people. So the ultimate goal is to DJ those kinds of things, those scenes, I guess.
Definitely
the festival scene. Looking out, I want a sunset set, you know what I mean, where I can just see the sun setting and just wave of people and feel the energy. That's really what I want.
Definitely. Yeah.
It'll be the peak of my life for sure.
Yeah. I go to a lot of festivals, and I know, like, anybody who's watching, I'm sure there's other people who go to festivals, and there is something different. There is a different type of vibe with like EDM music than any other set I've been to. I don't know, shows for probably every genre of music you could possibly think of. And there's just something about EDM shows that is just like so connecting, and like there is a power behind it. There is something behind it, and the way that DJs are able to like connect with the crowd through their music in such a different way than like any other artist. It's just really amazing. So that's a really great life goal. And it's really cool too, because it's cool to see how there's all these little like pop-up festivals happening now, and all these like solo artists are getting opportunities like that. So that's awesome. It's definitely a really achievable goal in this point in time. So that's really cool, and I'm really excited to see you work towards that. And then I guess moving over, I kind of want to talk with you about, because I know you mentioned that you're self-taught, and kind of working on music. So what was that experience like for you? And what are some, I guess, resources or tips or tricks that you would share for other musicians who are kind of starting out and kind of looking on to like, figuring everything out on their own? What resources were really helpful for you during that time of growth and kind of learning how the platforms work and all of that?
Well, I kind of went through stages, I guess, with my learning. I think anybody should start with a massive amount of curiosity, because if you just have a little bit of curiosity, then you're probably not going to go very far into it. So make sure you have a massive amount of curiosity for the way that things are done, the thing that you want to achieve, right? And for me, that was just making music. So it could be, play the guitar for somebody else. But from that point, do a little bit of research, find the things that you want to find, the avenues that you can use, or find some possible avenues that you can use to achieve that goal.
So sorry, my computer blacked out, and so we're back now. Anyway, sorry. So we were talking about how amazing the internet is. Going to continue on that thought.
Yeah, I mean, I would if the internet wasn't not amazing.
Exhibit A of the internet being amazing, right?
I think I was talking about how good YouTube is.
Yes.
So I mean, that's pretty much that point, is when you first start out. Just use YouTube, learn as much as you can. And then there was a point in time where I kind of hit a brick wall, right? There are certain things that you need formal technical training on. So I'd say the next step is to find a mentor, find a person to learn from, find somebody that either you idolize or you look up to. I think those, I don't know if those terms are technically the same. I think idolize is a little bit more of a superlative. But yeah, I mean, if you look up to somebody and look up to their abilities, then try to learn from them, ask questions, be as curious as you can. I had a kind of an apprenticeship in Portland, Oregon, when I lived there at a studio, and my mentor, Andrew Shardle, or Team Bonsai on Spotify, but he really taught me everything I know about music production. After I kind of learned the tools of the trade, then I was free to explore my artistic choices, or like the palette that I would use to paint the picture in the future. So once I had the technical ability, that's what I was able to do. So I think that answers the question. I mean, I kind of forgot what the question was, but I think that's what it was. Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah. It was resources like for younger creatives. And I think that, that mentorship aspect is so important for any creative outlet. That's something we've been talking about so much on this series with so many different creatives, is finding, that community of people who are kind of willing to grow and help you grow. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is so important. So yeah, definitely. That's definitely like the biggest key, I think, to really any creative outlet that you want to kind of tackle, is kind of finding someone who's like-minded and wants to grow and wants to teach, you know what I mean? Because it can be really difficult to kind of take things on your own. As great as the internet is to find stuff, I think there's nothing as great as like working with someone who knows what they're doing.
I was watching an Alan Watts speech yesterday.
No.
I think, I'm actually not sure what his official job title is. I just know that he did a lot of like motivational kind of thought-provoking speeches. And he mentioned something. I was listening to this just the other night. How are you to improve yourself if you're the one that needs to be improved? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of find somebody else that has the knowledge already and can help bestow that knowledge upon you. And if you act like a sponge and look at what they're doing and take your own processes and apply it to the techniques, then eventually you'll be able to fluently express yourself through whatever it is that you're learning. So
definitely. Yeah. No, totally. I think that's so important. Just again, just being able to kind of figure out what your path is, and just finding, again, like-minded people. I really love that you mentioned that. And I love that I have so many guests who have mentioned, that aspect of community, because it's just cool to see that like everybody's on the same page when it comes to that. You know what I mean? Because I feel like oftentimes any creative will enter the creative industry and feel so scared. It's really scary when everything, especially now, is so digital, it's so online, and you can't really put like names behind, or faces behind the name that you see on like a screen on Instagram or wherever that may be. And you kind of, you do find people that are really like great and that you really like love their stuff, but it's really scary to like hop in their DMs and be like, hey, like I need some help. Can you help me out? So just being able to find, just hearing that people are so open to this communal aspect of the creative industry and working together is so awesome. And I feel like that alone, like as a new creative, if I was watching this, I would hear that and be like, wow, really? Like, it's kind of cool to hear that people are actually that like open and willing to like want to work with each other and willing to accept like help from other people too. Yeah, so that's really cool. Awesome. And then kind of moving on, I know you mentioned you've been doing this for 6 years. So can we kind of talk about, I guess, what are some like key points that you've learned along the way that you would lend as advice to like younger creatives? And what is something like, is there like one general thing that like you would give as advice to your younger self when you were just starting that you've kind of learned throughout your time as a DJ or producer?
Yeah. If so, basically I'm talking to myself right now, right?
Yeah. Yourself 6 years ago or 5 years ago.
Take the time, learn the tools, don't force anything, enjoy the ride, and just take a breath. Because if you do engage in something like this, especially in music, everybody wants to do music. I mean, that kind of speaks to my earlier point that everybody loves music. There's not a single person in the world that will say, I don't like music, I don't like organized sound. There's not a single person that would say that. So it is human and everybody has the capacity, but understand that since everybody wants to do it, it's going to take a long time for you to carve out like a little home for yourself in that industry.
Right.
And so if I could speak to my younger self, I'd say, just take the time and don't force it. I still say to this day that the songs make themselves. I'm merely just orchestrating that. I'm sitting there and I'm making the choices that I think need to be made, but the song is the thing that's telling me what to do. You know what I mean? So, and then to the last point, take a breath. It's going to be a long one. So enjoy the ride, because if you're always focused on the end goal, then you're never really going to get to that end goal. You know, if you're always thinking about like, I want this, I want this. Why am I not there yet? Why am I not there yet? You're just going to kind of torture yourself. So
definitely
have faith in yourself and set tangible goals for the short term, so that you know you can achieve them, and you get constant affirmations that you're making progress. And then you're going to feel better about yourself, and after a few deep breaths, you're going to enjoy the ride, and your music's just going to be better, because the better you're feeling, the more passion you're able to put into your craft. And so mental health and just health in general is probably one of the most important things for anybody trying to be creative in anything. So I think to boil down to 3 words is take a breath.
Definitely. Yeah. And I like what you mentioned about, about not getting too focused on, a goal, and like only focusing on that and trusting the process. Because I feel like, oftentimes as a creative too, like you'll find that your like goal kind of shifts, like whatever your goal is at the beginning, like as you're like learning and, changing and growing as an artist, like oftentimes like your goal is so different in like a year, 2 years, 5 years, you know what I mean, than you ever like anticipated in the beginning. So I think definitely not getting too caught up on one thing is super important. I really love that you kind of tapped in on that, because I think a lot of times, again, with social media and the way that everything is kind of portrayed for creatives, I think people get really caught up in wanting to, get the numbers and get, all these like things that seem so important. And then you lose trust in the process, and you lose trust in or patience in the process. You know what I mean? And I think that, just being able to kind of enjoy those growth periods and those learning times, you know what I mean, is what really allows like people to kind of get to where they need to get in the end. Because it's all passion. Exactly. And if you don't have that, and if it's not there, and you're only working to like satisfy some other like, materialistic or other, type situation, then it's just, you're not going to like get there, because you're not going to enjoy all the time that it takes, you know what I mean? Because creativity is something that takes time, and it's something that like it takes it's something you need to put work in every day, and if you're not 100% in like your heart and mind, like it's definitely difficult. And I don't really think it's like a possible journey.
It's stressful too. Like, don't get me wrong. Anybody who's listening to this, don't think that it's going to be an easy ride, even if you are relaxed and passionate about the whole thing. Because if you are passionate about something, you take it really seriously. You're going to be frustrated, especially if something's not working out the way that you want it to. But you do it because you love it, and not because you're after the clout that you get from being a star or anything like that. Just make sure you like what you do. Make sure you love what you do, because it's going to suck sometimes. But if you really love it, then you'll just stick to it, and you'll just do it because you have to. You know what I mean?
Definitely. And there's a quote one of my other guests said, and it was like, do what you love. If you're doing what you love, then you'll never like have to work a day in your life. And like, that's something I grew up hearing all the time, and like something I preach to like everybody in my life. And that's so like, just so true. Like just trusting that like process time. And like, obviously there's frustrating times, but like oftentimes I found like with my craft, like if I've ever hit a point where anything is frustrating, like you figure out what it is that's making that like, process frustrating. And then whenever you get to the end goal, you're like, damn, that was actually really cool that like I really struggled there, but like I was able to find a solution. And like when you're done, it's like 10 times better than it would have been if it was just like a breeze to like complete,
every time.
Yeah. Those are really great moments as a creative. I really enjoy those. So that's really awesome. Cool. And then what is some advice you would give, maybe not necessarily to a musician, but maybe just any younger creative who's entering, this field of, the creative industry? What is some advice you would give to them on how to kind of navigate it? Because we've touched a lot on how, social media and everything has kind of taken a really big toll on the way that we view being a creative, and how daunting it could be to be a creative because of all those tools. So what is, I guess, a piece of advice that you would give to someone who's younger and maybe wanting to do whatever that may be, whatever niche it may be within the creative industry? How would you kind of like lend them a hand in navigating their career at the beginning?
There's nothing that I can say that's concrete, really, because if there was a concrete way to make it as a creative, then everybody would do it, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that take your creativity outside of the realm of your craft. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, it is still a business. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
still kind of sell yourself and do
Mm-hmm.
that the industry practices. So
Mm-hmm.
think outside the box in how do I present myself, or how do I get people to pay attention to me in this sea of the internet, in this
Mm-hmm.
massive, it seems seemingly a competition. How do I get noticed? And so you really just have to be creative in all aspects of your life, instead of just, if you're a painter, don't just focus on how do I make a creative painting, although that's where the success lies. That's the kind
Mm-hmm.
of the root of it. Make sure that
Mm-hmm.
whatever you are producing is of the highest quality that you can muster. Get good at your craft. That is step one. I mean, don't overlook that. But outside of that, you're not done. Back in the day, if you did music, or if you did something, the internet wasn't really a thing. So you'd have to find a certain person, and those people were concrete in who you have to talk to in order to get somewhere in your career. But now the game's been changed. It's flipped on its head. So with the internet, there are almost unlimited possibilities as to how to get attention,
Mm-hmm.
how to get people, how to provide value for people. So
Mm-hmm.
just think outside the box, be creative in all aspects of your life, instead of just what you're working on and the product that you're making. That's ground one, but make sure that you extend that creativity outwards a little bit in your life. And I'd say that that's going to give you an advantage over most people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I agree with all those things. Yeah. And I think, a lot of the things we've touched on today are just so important for like all of them are so important for younger creatives and in general, you know what I mean? Just like, because I think there's just there's so much like crap, like, excuse me, but so much crap in the creative industry that flows around. There's so much, you hear so much negativity when you're entering it, like, oh, like you're not going to make it, or you're not going to this, or it's not possible to be successful or have a job, or, all these things that we hear. And it makes it really scary for a young creative, especially in these times, to want to kind of pursue what they love, and I think that, kind of listening to all of these like little tips and tricks are so important for these younger creatives to kind of, be able to thrive in this environment. And, I think at the end of the day, also realizing just how imperative like creatives are for this world is also just like is so important, and that anything is attainable. Like we have so many resources online, like just like you said, YouTube and all these things that we can really just like learn anything that we want at this point in time, which is so amazing. And I think just being able to take hone in on that and being able to kind of just focus. I think it's all just focus, and I think what's so amazing is that you kind of like discovered you loved something and you just put all of your focus and all of your energy on it, and like it's brought you so far, so
Yeah.
that's really cool to see. And thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts and stuff. It's been so cool to hear your story and I'm really excited to share it with the community. And also, we have a lot of stuff going on right now. So I don't know if you've seen, but we're entering our creatives only digital space, which is really cool. And we're actually looking for people right now to host like little event and workshop type situations. So if that's something you'd be interested in doing, let me know. You could basically like, whether that be like, you can literally play a set on there and we can all just come up and watch, or teaching like little skills or something that were helpful that you kind of learned through trial and error for other up and coming musicians would be awesome as well. Yeah. So keep in touch with me about that. And if anybody else is watching and if you guys have any sort of like craft or anything that you feel like you're really just great at and you would love to share with the community, you can always email me directly at erica@sadacollective.com. I will also put a link below to where you can just apply through a type form for your event or workshop that you want to host. So that's really cool. And then, like I said, we are entering our digital space really soon on December 1st, which is super awesome. So it's just going to be kind of like a smorgasbord of all these like different kinds of creatives. And we're going to have so many different like, opportunities and resources for everybody. And I think the main thing is really just connecting you guys with each other, because I think at the end of the day, like you said, we were talking a lot about community, and I've talked a lot about community with almost every single guest and how important that is in this industry. So that's definitely something we're really going to hone in on is building that really strong community of people who like know each other and are able, feeling comfortable to work with each other and reach out to each other, so that you can kind of learn these skills and kind of do what Grayson did and find a mentor in an area that you have interest in to teach you. That's just the way to go. That's what you need those like solid relationships. So yeah, and if anybody else is watching and would like to be interviewed for this series, there's also going to be a type form for that down below. You can also email me directly at the same email. And other than that, Grayson, is there anywhere that anyone watching can reach out to you on, whether that be Instagram or anywhere, any socials that you want to share with us?
Yes, I'm quite active on Instagram. So if you do send me a DM, even with like some music, or if you're a vocalist and you want me to take a listen to your music, I'm always happy to meet new people. Obviously, it's a
Awesome.
little tricky in these times, but
Mhm.
Zoom on Instagram, GZ00M. Uh, Give me a follow, like my crazy videos that I put a lot of effort into. So
Awesome.
just
Cool.
share with me some memes or something funny, and I'd really appreciate that. So
Awesome. So everybody make sure you go reach out to Grayson, and then Grayson, make sure you keep in touch with us regarding doing an event with us. Hopefully we can get you all set up with that. So hopefully you guys will see a lot more of Grayson within the community. And thank you guys so much for joining us on this really exciting time for SADA Collective. I'm really excited for where this is all going. There's just so much happening right now and so much connections, and it's just been really great to see like friendly faces and just get to know everybody in the community. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen going forward. And thank you so much, Grayson. And thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you for the next episode of Deconstructing the Narrative. Bye.